welcome to another episode of the Acid Trash Jamboree, a corner of the internet where we proudly let our freak flags fly and talk about all manner of bizarre music and films. In this video, I thought I'd discuss one of the most mysterious underground acts of all time, Don Bradshaw-Leather, and their one and only album, Distance Between Us. There's really not much, if any, concrete background info out there about Don Bradshaw-Leather, or Bradsham, as it's misspelled on the cover. The legend goes that Distance Between Us was recorded using advance money from the major label CBS, who ultimately rejected it, meaning it was eventually self-released through the Distance Records, Vanity, or private press label, and that Don himself used to have to go from record shop to record shop trying to sell off copies of his magnum opus, most of which ended up in bargain bins, retailing for as little as 10 pence. Somewhere along the line, the album caught the attention of a few rabid underground enthusiasts, among them the Freeman brothers, who run the Ultima Thule mail order shop, David Tibet of Current 93, and also Steve Stapleton of Nurse with Wound, who actually put DBL on the now legendary list of influences that was included with Nurse's first album in 1979. Fast forward a couple of decades, and the reputation of Distance Between Us began to grow. At least one CDR bootleg started doing the rounds. Assorted reviews and downloadable rips began to appear on assorted online blogs. Plus, Tibet himself played an excerpt of the album during an interview that he did with WFMU Radio in around 2006, which is where I first heard these most mesmerising sounds. Now, I should probably use this video as an opportunity to fess up. Around about this time in the mid-2000s, as you may recall, the MySpace website was all the rage. Spotting a gap in the market, as it were, I anonymously set up a thoroughly unofficial fan page here for Don Bradshaw-Leather, for no other reason than I was fascinated by the music and the whole mystery behind the project. The page proved to be quite useful in the end, as in around 2007 or so, a chap professing to know Don's sister left a long, rambling message in the comments section, typed in all caps, if I remember correctly. Knowing of his passion for the album, I put Tibet in touch with this guy, who in turn introduced him to Don's sister. With her blessing, Tibet planned to create an official From the Master Tapes reissue, which was in the pipeline for a good few years, but unfortunately never came to fruition. I checked again recently, and the MySpace page is actually still online, though unfortunately the comments section is long gone, and I don't seem to have actually saved the fella's message to my old computer, which I'm kicking myself about, frankly. From what I can recall, as well as stating that Don sadly passed away sometime in the 90s, said message may have been the source of the CBS rumour, as well as the one about him installing an actual church organ in his home studio. Anyway, just a little anecdote there for you. Okay, on to the music itself. Taking up the whole of Disc 1 is the two-part title track. After a dramatic and ominous intro with dark clouds of atonal piano and mellotron rumbling the life out of your speakers, the album actually eases us into its strange world with a succession of mostly quite settled and accessible movements. Firstly, propulsive galloping bongos and strident pounding timpani underpin a haunting and blissful minor key mellotron reverie. This is followed by an extended two-chord psychedelic jam, overlaid with some impressively fruity Hammond organ soloing, which then leads into this kind of weird acid western section with echo-soaked wordless female vocals and fluid piano improvisations floating above a staccato kind of clip-clopping rhythm and soft acoustic guitar strumming. Briefly bringing to mind the classic soundtrack work of Ennio Morricone. Regarding the female vocals, I remember reading somewhere the woman we see Pictured on the back sleeve of the album was actually Don's girlfriend at the time, and that her nickname was indeed Leather. So I'm guessing it's her ethereal tones that we hear on this piece, though it's unclear if she actually contributed anything else to the album. For part 2, hold on to your hats as Don turns the scary dial up to 11. Chaotic piano pounding and sinister streaks of mellotron take us kicking and screaming through most of, if not all of, the levels of musical hell. The bongos that were once so prominent in the mix are now barely audible beneath the tumultuous sonic seas that he's conjuring up. After this, an extended fit of mellotron evilness brings to mind both King Crimson and Captain Beefheart's farthest out sonic explorations on this most curious instrument. Mercifully, we then enter calmer waters, the melancholic piano section touching on both jazz and modern classical themes before things begin to build up again. Eventually turning rather frantic with multi-track pianos locking together in kind of complex minimalist patterns. The tron occasionally drifting in with ghostly single notes before taking over completely again for the brief concluding section. Okay, so over on disc 2 we find Dance of the Goblins, which opens very quietly with lo-fi bongo patterns and yet more of that sinister tron, straight out of some ancient occult-themed horror film. The tension builds and the mellotron gets more and more atonal and jarring, offering up some seriously ugly chordal clusters along the way. The drums respond accordingly, beating out frenzied rhythms, and the whole thing eventually descends into sweat-soaked delirium. Finally, the hellish chaos abates, and we hear what I presume is the Dance of the Goblins itself, a section of pastoral, almost playful and whimsical mellotron frivolity, which eventually meanders off into kind of Klaus Schulze-type minor key noodling, and a long section of smeared, free-form abstraction which floats between moods at will. Dreamlike one second, nightmarish the next. Truly strange stuff. The concluding piece, Autumn Mist, plays out almost like a summary of what's gone before. It opens with another 2-chord minor key vamp, this time performed on an echo-laden piano, with subtle traces of mellotron in the background. This is rudely interrupted by a forceful and thunderous classical section, with speedy piano runs hammering away beneath white-hot sheets of tron wickedness. The piano vamp then re-emerges, battered and bruised from the preceding sonic maelstrom, with Don up in the echo levels until the notes kind of start to blur into angelic halos of sound. But not for long, as trippy backwards effects usher in perhaps the album's weirdest section, which is saying something. An extremely long succession of woozy, heavily affected kind of musical vignettes almost, some of which sound like they've been pitched down or slowed down via some kind of tape manipulation. It's pretty weird though. Try as I might, I can't for the life of me get a handle on or even really pay attention to this closing movement. Listening to it makes me feel like I'm frankly under some kind of heavy sedation, drifting in and out of sleep. Little tunes and motifs occasionally coming into focus before being swallowed up again by the waves of druggy gloop. A fitting end then to a most unique album. Now, in the absence of that long-promised official reissue, the bootleggers have been extremely busy these past few years, cranking out facsimiles left, right and centre on both vinyl and CD. The one I own and that you see pictured in this video came out in 2019 and supposedly originated from Thailand. It's quite a nice looking thing, it's listenable enough, though I do still lament that Tibet's version never came to pass. And so concludes this video on the enigmatic Don Bradshaw-Leather. I hope it's been interesting. The distance between us is certainly a lot easier to hear in full nowadays than it was, getting on for 20 years ago now when I first became aware of it. So yeah, if you're up for checking out some unique, adventurous and truly progressive music, then why not give it a shot? Who knows, you might like it. As with albums like Gollum by Sand or, say, the Cro-Magnon album, there really isn't much else like it out there. So yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for watching as ever, and I'll see you again shortly on the next edition of the Acid Trash Jamboree.